It just seems like we should look at the whole picture as we're making decisions, and the redevelopment money is money we could maybe be using for something that would have bigger impact sooner.
I'm not sure if I agree with that comment, but I'm
okay.
into preserving the building, and I'm not sure that $200,000 of redevelopment money would not be well spent in preserving the building. It does seem like $500,000 is a tremendous amount, but I think preserving our lease for the skateboard park area and preserving this building are all part of saving and preserving the downtown. We do not want a private entity to get hold of the depot right now, or of the skateboard park parcel, and have them create something over which we have no control. I think one of the original arguments was that we want something special to happen in and around the railroad depot. So I don't know what happens if we cannot. Well, are these funds at risk if we don't seek more funding right now or provide more funding?
No, they're not at risk right now. The only thing that would jeopardize them is if the railroad took some action to declare surplus. One of the things I might just add too, in talking to our architect that's working on the plans and specs, they said that we expect, this is a good time for bidding projects, and so they expect the bids to actually come in lower than they've actually estimated, so there could be some savings.
What would do we have plans after it's restored for what would happen to it? How is it being designed, and for what purpose is it being designed, for what use? Right.
The restrictions that we have, because it's Caltrans funding, initially it qualified because it was rehabilitation of a historic transportation building. And at the time that the money was applied for, NCRA had planned to occupy it and use it as their office space. City Attorney David Rapport and I had a conference call with Caltrans last Friday, and one of the things that we were talking about was, the future if NCRA doesn't keep the property. And Caltrans made it clear that it has to be used for some transportation purposes, that building. And if we change the original intent that we qualified for the funding, we may have to go back through the Federal Highway Administration and the California Transportation Commission just to make sure they concur with another type of transportation use.
Councilmember Rodden?
Maybe, Mr. Thomas, you're the representative to MTA, and I wonder if some of the balance that is required to complete the project might be contributed from MTA as a future. I know the project for a transit center is much larger than just the depot building, but obviously the depot building would be central to the transit center, and so maybe maybe that's something that they could look at, and that's one thing. And then
I can tell you that it's not been under discussion, and I can also tell you that they're not in a position, I think, to throw money at anything right now.
Yeah.
Like anybody
You still
else.
have the floor.
Yeah. I would appreciate if you could ask
Right.
Bruce Richard about that anyway, because they may have a set aside for that still. And then I wanted to ask staff, even if the money suddenly turned up and we had enough to do it, does staff have the capacity right now to even complete this project, to manage the project and all that?
We do. I mean, we have a consultant doing the plans and specifications, and it wouldn't be that big of an effort on our part. I think one of the concerns is that, that how we then manage, and the idea was the city was just going to kind of manage the project, and it was just going to run right through the hoops, and it was going to be built. And here we are 9-10 years later, and we've spent significant staff time. And one of the things that I've also thought about is how are we on the hook to manage that the use of this building continue to meet the terms of that grant, those grant funds, because that could be somewhat of an effort as well. And so I think that's one of my concerns. Mr. Senor may have other comments about the staff time for the actual construction portion.
The only thing I would add, is possible something that our city building inspector could oversee, and it would go through the permit process, so he would be involved once we got to the point of actually constructing the rehab of the building. And the other kind of aspect of it, and it's attached to our staff report today, is we entered into this agreement with NCRA, and one of the conditions of the agreement was that NCRA agreed to, for the long term and for the life, essentially to maintain the depot, retain ownership, and to maintain it, to actually physically maintain the building as it went through the years. So.
Councilmember Landis?
I'm wondering if we don't do the construction soon, what are the downsides of it in your mind?
Well, we do have there is a deadline. We have only so much more time to get this money, and right now we're not critical because we got an extension, but it won't be long before it's critical that we're going to lose the money. That's one thing. The other issue is the economic stimulus package goes through, and all of a sudden every contractor in the universe is busy. So if we wanted to do this, we'd certainly get a good price right now.
I think moving forward has a lot of benefits, and in terms of the spirit of the community and responding to the downturn in the economy, if we could figure out within the next several months of who in the community, if not the NCRA, could put good use to this facility. I think, again, we've talked about this a lot in terms of how that area where the park is still, the parkland along the creek has become really extremely attractive, but a lot of people haven't stepped off there probably because that's not a sufficient motive. So maybe, I'm leaning in favor of funding this project. And I just wish I knew immediately how the facility could be properly managed, but I think it could be a tremendous boost for the community, for the downtown. I think it fits in beautifully with the attraction of a new courthouse in that same region. I'm very supportive, but only if we knew how to protect it. That gets back to the Riverside Park issue. As we develop it, but can we protect it from vandalism and et cetera? So I'm leaning in favor right now of moving forward, but only if we know how to use the facility, or if NCRA will use it and protect it. Councilmember Crane. Oh,
The city manager too.
City Manager Chambers.
Okay. I just wanted to comment that I urged staff to bring this forward because none of us felt like we exactly knew what the ultimate objective was, since it has kind of changed over time from when we began it. But we came to the conclusion that the council might want to look at this as having gone ahead and rehabilitated this structure that sits there and is quite prominent and will only deteriorate further if we don't rehab it. And our only ability really control it once it's rehabilitated is through the permit process or use process as to who goes into the building, and then in working with NCRA. But we can't guarantee for you that the city has no control over it. It's not our property. So, but we would have achieved the goal of rehabilitating the property if that's what the original intent was.
Councilmember Crane. Maury Road.
Well, I'm leaning towards it, towards funding the remainder, but we just recently got finished talking about a process for deciding what projects, and I think we should put this into the mix and evaluate it with the other ones, and that should be happening soon, right, Sage? No? To look at, I thought we've been waiting for this moment.
No, we are going to be coming back with the discussion of projects. If you want us at this time to put this specific project into the criteria that's been established so you could have an evaluation of what this project specifically has to offer, we could do that immediately.
No, I didn't mean that. I just meant when we rate